let's get into another classic JP and the Beans top 5. As expected, these are our favorite movies and shows of 2024. Now, let's just agree right out of the gate. We're going to do this a little bit differently, throw a curveball at you. We're going to go from 1 to 5, okay? So we know what our freaking number 1 is. It's Deadpool and Wolverine.
I'm going to have to change that around.
And if it's not, then I guess,
Oh, my bad. Deadpool and Wolverine is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for me. No, you're right. We'll get one out of the way right now.
I mean, it just is, as it should be. We've opined on it endlessly, and we could continue and continue and continue. It's everything we want.
It's
great. Great action, great humor, great story, great characters.
It's perfect.
It is.
Honestly, it's perfect. Yeah. I don't have any critiques on that movie.
Yep.
I wish I would have cried out of joy. I did not.
I seriously haven't laughed that much from start to finish in a movie in I don't know how long.
Probably since the first one. I think it was Deadpool 1.
Truly
Honest
incredible.
to God. I think that was the first.
Yep.
And that was 8 years ago?
Yep.
Oh my God, that was 8 years ago.
Kind of wild.
Let's move forward.
Yep. All right. My number 2, as we invert things here a little bit here. For me, my number 2 was Rings of Power Season 2. And again, to clarify, this is what I enjoyed the most. I'm not necessarily saying Season 2 of Rings of Power was the second best thing that you would have watched with your time in 2024, but it was my second most favorite thing to have watched in 2024. The level of detail increased. I think the showrunners did themselves a big favor by whittling down the various storylines because, my goodness, are there so many characters to follow. The dwarves are a real highlight. Love that. The dynamic, of course, between Sauron and Celebrimbor carries that show. It's magnificent stuff. Rings of Power Season 2 is my number 2. Beans, your number 2.
My number 2 is the Penguin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We just talked about this, last pod? 2 pods ago? Last pod?
Yeah.
That show's so well done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful gangster show. I would watch it again, which I don't like watching things twice sometimes, I'm just one of those guys. I watch it and
one and done, you're
and
good.
Then eventually down the line I'd watch it again.
I get that.
But if I'm going to watch the Batman again, once that trilogy's over, you have to watch the Penguin.
Right.
You have to go Batman, the Penguin, and then go into the other ones.
Yep.
It's not for me, it's not just a spinoff that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's this is very essential to this franchise.
Right.
So for me, Penguin, definitely number 2.
Love that. Yeah. Your number 3, sir.
My number 3 is going to be a curveball for everyone because it's a documentary. I have a documentary on here.
Oh,
Mr. McMahon.
come on.
Yes, I'm a WWE guy.
That's great. You got all the way through it, though?
No shame. Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
It's good.
It is not a very happy watch. It's not, but I wouldn't say it's sad either. It's that you get a lot of mixed emotions watching this.
Sure.
And
which I think is the mark of especially as it pertains to Vince McMahon, if you can say that about that documentary, you know that it's operating as objectively as a documentary can, where it's just trying to show you, the audience, here's what has happened, and allow you to decide how you're going to resolve all of the good, the bad, and everything in between. So the 2 episodes that I've gotten through so far, I would really resonate with your description.
And for me, and I think because Vince McMahon did not like this documentary towards the end, because he came out, he's I don't feel like this is an accurate representation of me. I think they nitpicked.
But it is.
I think personally they did a great job because to me, Vince McMahon has done a lot of good from what I can understand.
Yep.
He's also done a good amount of bad. I think if anything, you watch this show and what I came out of it with is that Vince McMahon got lost in the character to the point where his real life and the character naturally merged.
Yep.
And I don't think he did it on purpose.
Sure.
But I think for him, it got to the point where the lines were so blurred, he didn't know what was what anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because he did everything for the money.
Yep.
And what was good for the business.
Yep.
And again, did a lot of good for that, but also did not a lot of good things.
Yeah.
So not defending McMahon at all for the bad, but I think you just have to watch that and acknowledge, like, oh, like maybe there is some sympathetic part to this where you're like,
Yeah.
you feel bad for the guy.
It's a phenomenal, like any good origin story, it's complex. When you start to unwrap how just about any, whether it's sports franchise or team or player, like group, individual, what have you, there are complexities. Not all of it is going to be as pure as we would prefer or desire it to be. Doesn't justify it. Doesn't mean, well, the means do not necessarily justify the ends, of course. But I always think it's helpful to have an honest view of how we got to where we got to, how that was created, how it came to be. I would much rather have that than hey, let's try and dress this up. Let's try and, improve the optics of it, make the crappy thing look better than it was. Just present it as is and let me come to my own judgment, my own conclusion on how I want to respond to it. So,
Right.
yeah, really well made documentary.
So that's my number.
That's a great pull for number 3. My number 3 was The Penguin. It was made so doggone well. And for me, the story was tremendous. It's hard to pick just one point of emphasis for that show. But where I'm going to go with what my takeaway as time passes for the Penguin show is going to be just the performances in that show. Colin Farrell deserves all of the praise that can be heaped upon him. Truly outstanding. Kristen Milioti right there with him.
Already a good actress. To me, like, I think she
Elite
just,
stuff.
this should establish her from moving forward as, like,
Yep.
she's a beast.
Yeah.
100%.
Elite stuff. I don't think I watched anything in 2024 that, and listen, I'm no thespian, I'm not the expert, but for my money, that was where I saw the best performances in any movie or TV show was The Penguin. So that's
Agreed.
my number 3. For me, the number 4 is Transformers 1. It was so much fun. So much fun. Unexpected. And the best thing or the highest endorsement that I can possibly give to it is I want to see more. I would like to see this become a franchise. Let's see more subsequent movies with this animation style, with that particular voice cast, along those lines of how it is that the Transformers come to be. I would love to see more of that. And I thought it struck a really, really solid balance of, yes, it's clearly for kids first, and it was still appealing for me as the adult to be in there and enjoy and watch the story unfold without it turning into a PC freaking Super Pets, where this is supposed to be a kids movie, but these are all adult jokes. What's going on?
Which is the key component for animated movies.
Yeah.
You want it to be for the kids, but yes, the parents are the ones that have to sit through the whole dang thing.
We got to pay for the
Right.
attendance.
So it can't be too stupid, right?
Right. It's got to be intelligent enough.
Right.
There is no doubt. So that's my number 4, Transformers 1.
My number 4 is Kung Fu. That's funny. That might be the name of the pod. Anyways, Kung Fu Panda 4 is my number 4. Listen, is it the best movie that came out this year? Well, yes, because of what we got. So, but like,
Had a chance.
overall with the Kung Fu Panda franchise, is it the best one? No. But it's also establishing second trilogy
Yep.
in its own right,
Yep.
as now Poe is making a transition in his life, like all of us do in our lives, as taking
Sensei.
up a role, yes, as
Love
sensei,
it.
training the next dragon warrior, and watching him go from being the mentee to now the mentor,
Great.
and trying to struggle through that, as all mentors and mentors do. I think you and I both know that from a very deep level. So
It's outstanding.
that is my number 4. And now my number 5, because it had to be on this list at some point, Echo. Look,
Ace.
is it on here because of Echo? Absolutely not.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't care if I see her again. No offense to because the
get it.
character,
I
the
get it.
character's fine.
Yep.
The character's fine.
Yep.
If she shows up in Daredevil and has a small part in Daredevil, that is about the role that I want her to have.
Yep.
She can also show up in Moon Knight, whatever. Great.
Right.
Kingpin was the highlight for this. We got Kingpin back finally,
Yep.
and not that little Hawkeye bull crap that we got.
That was pure nonsense.
That was
wasn't it? Boy,
super
was
nonsense.
Was that not just a sign of what was to come?
Ex-
Like in retrospect, as soon as that happened, we should have been like, "Oh, farts!"
Right. Exactly.
We're in for it.
Does
in a good way.
Does him getting his eye taken away from a gun and him just walking up and being fine? Does that make sense either?
Of course not. Comics.
Oh.
Comics.
No, it doesn't. But that did happen in the comics, so I will give him that.
Mhm.
He did lose his eye for a little bit. Whatever. But it was such a great showing of Kingpin as a character, and the difference between him, who pretends to care,
Mhm.
and seeing family who actually
Mhm.
does care. And it was just brilliantly well done. It brought Kingpin back to the forefront, and now he's in the MCU at that point. And you're like, oh, this is what he's going to do now? He's going to be the mayor?
Mhm.
No, thank you. I'll pass. I don't want that, right? So now we are excited to see him again.
Yeah.
Because Vincent D'Onofrio, as we have said before in the past, that man will forever be Kingpin in my head. So there you go. That's my number 5.
I love it. My number 5 is going to be Shogun. This show, based on a book, single novel. Now I think it ended up being a trilogy, but the timeline of the trilogy gets a little wonky because it goes from 1600s feudal Japan to like 1800s and then 1900s. So it just jumps centuries or decades. And the show did so well that there is a season 2 in development, which I'm very excited for. And there should be, because again, when something is made with this much care and attention to detail, and there's that much of a story that is worth telling, give me more of that, not less. So if you haven't watched it yet, highly recommend. I'm not saying it's going to be the best thing you'll ever watch, but I am saying that you are going to watch it and be glad that you did. So Shogun is my number 5 for 2024.
Wow, that felt weird, but we did it.
Right. Love it. Of course, Craven still out there. Maybe it sneaks into the top 5.
Not gonna. I can tell you right now, it ain't gonna. Because if I come...
That safe is locked. That vault is shut.
I'm telling you right now, if I come on this podcast next episode and after our week off, and I say that movie is good...
Won't that be wild? Won't that be wild?
It's gonna be a cold day in hell.